How good is the iPhone 6s Plus for gaming in 2023? So, with Apple now on the 14th and will be 15th soon with their new iPhones, how's the old 6th gen iPhone is gonna hold up? At first I thought the answer was gonna be hell nah. But the thing actually surprised me with how it handled some of the games, so without further ado, let's get to it. First game is Genshin Impact. And no, I will not show gameplay footage because my iPhone only has 32 gigabytes of storage, while Genshin right now, as of 3.6, is 28 gigabytes. Instead, I will show a few screenshots I took 2 years ago when the game was still around 12 gigabytes. And it looks very awful. Due to the lack of RAM, it can't load many things. Or if it does, it takes a long while to do so buildings all look like goofy, 2010 Roblox graphics. And I clipped through the world here because the ground didn't have time to load, so Genshin is unplayable. Next is Honkai Star Rail. I've made a whole video on this game. Check out my channel to watch it. But I'll show an extra clip anyway. Yeah, it's strange, but for some reason it's still playable. Next on the list is Asphalt 9, Legends. Ah yes, the classic car bounce, car crash, car fast game that has been used for benchmarking mobile performance since 2018. To my absolute surprise, Asphalt 9 actually performs really well on the iPhone 6s Plus. The frame rate runs at a decent 30 FPS, which is not bad even though it has some frame drops every now and then, especially when screen recording, but I'm pretty sure the graphics settings are cranked up to the highest quality by default. After seeing how the phone handles the last two games, I'm genuinely impressed by this. I made a comparison video a long time ago comparing this phone's performance to a 2018 mid-range Android. Even though the 6s Plus is from 2015, still blows the mid-ranger out of the water. Though of course, with graphics quality that looks this good comes with overheating that pretty much could give your hands first-degree burns. The game should have had a low power mode or something like that so it could lower the graphics and temperature a little bit. Now this next one is a game that's probably more popular for people that live in Asia like me. Ace Racer, released in May 2023. This game is a weird one. It has some goofy, physics, a companion character that could cause some neuron activation, and for some reason cars have ultimates that looks so comical. But despite all that, it's probably the best-looking racing game on mobile right now. Since it's a new release, I doubted that the iPhone 6s would be able to handle it at all. I mean, look at these gameplay videos. These recordings were captured on my 2022 Xiaomi 12T, a pretty high-end spec Android at the moment. But then, once again, the 6s Plus delivered. It absolutely works smoothly on 60 FPS. It feels great too. Yes, the graphics does look crap. But hey, if you're playing on this, you can't expect too much. By default, after choosing the prioritize frame rate option, this is the setting that it gave me. But of course, I had to try racing using ultra graphics. Sadly, the iPhone had a stroke and didn't record the race at all, but instead recorded the race ending that looks totally normal and functional. Yeah, no. It's all broken and nothing's loading. I also tried the absolute lowest settings using the low frame rate option, which lowers your frame rate to 20 FPS. Why would you willingly play any lower than 30 FPS? But the point is, the game's working fine, except for some slow loading issues and a few other bugs, but everything else is absolutely playable. Again, I am impressed with this one. Our next test is CarX Drift Racing 2. For a game that has a sole purpose of just drifting, CarX has a lot more to it. Like its pretty complex customizations, especially when compared to the first game, large car roster, and of course the most realistic graphics on the CarX series until CarX Street came out last year. And we all know how that went.
Hi, my name is Walter. Cock and ball.
Now, I knew that the iPhone 6s Plus would be able to handle this game with no issues because of how it handled Asphalt 9 that came out the same year. And I was right. By default, the game uses adaptive graphics that sets the graphics on around 30% with the sliders, and also uses 60 FPS too. With these settings, the iPhone cannot push to 60 FPS and instead stays afloat at 30 to 40 FPS. It's acceptable for what it is, especially because at these settings the game looks pretty realistic anyway. So for an 8-year-old device, I'd say it's pretty solid. I also tried 0%, 50%, and 100% for the graphics sliders. For 0% or lowest settings, the game actually runs on a solid 60 FPS, although it sacrifices many graphical effects, mainly shadows and render distance. This is clearly the way to play if you want sheer performance without minding too much with visuals. For 50% or medium settings, it pretty much looks the same and performs identically like the default 30% settings, but it's locked at 30 FPS instead. For 100% or ultra settings, it crashed my game. Probably because it didn't have enough RAM to load up this map. So let's move to another one. There we go. And from what I experienced, it looks and performs really good. But sadly, the game now runs at around 20 to 30 FPS and is burning my hands again. So in conclusion, the best graphics settings are these settings. With this, you could load up pretty much every map with decent performance and good-looking graphics. That's it for CarX Drift Racing. Oh, actually, while we're here, I'm going to touch on CarX Street. So basically, it didn't fucking work. Even though it's available to download, the description says that it only works on iPhone X or newer. But hey, I don't think that's too much of a loss. Last game we're going to try out is Grid Autosport. It's the 2017 mobile port of the highly regarded Grid Autosport for PC and consoles that was released way back in 2014, featuring gorgeous-looking graphics, especially for 2014 standards, and amazing physics that results in realistic damage model and a SimCade handling model. It's essentially BeamNG but mobile. I downloaded the custom edition for this test, so it wouldn't take up too much space, and I have no money to buy the full iOS version. For this version, the game only features one game mode, one track, one class, and one car to choose. Sure, it lacks variety, but for the context of this video, that should do it. For graphics, every single device has set graphics settings that varies for how powerful your device is. For example, the Xiaomi 12T could hold up high settings with 60 FPS no problem, so it provides more settings to fit your needs. The iPhone 6s, however, does not, because it has the absolute minimum specs required to run the game at all. So Grid doesn't actually have a fully customizable graphics settings like CarX Drift 2, but it only has Energy Saver for this phone that could be switched on and off. Theoretically, it should prevent overheating and preserve battery. From what I could see, it only reduces the texture quality or render resolution. Hell, I honestly can barely tell. This low graphics does not show a lot visual effects, like the lack of dynamic shadows, so they use baked-in textures to accommodate, lack of screen effects like lens flares, particles, or even the glitch effects when crashing into something. The only visual graphics shown is just a very subtle bloom on certain angles. And this is all with the Energy Saver mode off. But credit where it's due, the game runs smoothly at 30 FPS with barely any frame drops. It feels like the devs really optimized the game to run amazingly like any other higher spec phones. In conclusion, the iPhone 6s still has hope for gaming in 2023, even though it sits on the bottom for compatibility at this point. If you do still have an iPhone 6s and plan to game with it, I suggest to stick to an older game like Real Racing 3 or any 2D games. Also, I am aware that most games on this video are just racing games. I plan to make a part 2 or something with other genres. Please do comment below for suggestions on what should I cover next. That's it for this video. Hope you find this thing informative and somewhat funny. Please like and definitely do subscribe to my channel. I'm sure we can pass Mr. Beast by the end of the year.